This is our first class in July 4th. It is given to us by our brother Andrew Bromwell. The third title is Ruth the Moabitess. Brother Andrew.
Thanks, Joseph. Good morning, everybody. That little thought was really quite interesting, actually. I appreciated the things that Ken had to say there. There is a tendency amongst young people in the UK, and I guess you're not very different here, that if we want to find something out these days, we go on the internet and we Google it. We have a look, we see what's out there. And we do the same in our community. If we want to find out something about a subject in our community, we tend to go on the internet and find out what's going on. There's a little challenge there, because if I write some nonsense and put it on the internet, and you pick it up and you read it, how do you know whether I've written the truth or whether I've written nonsense? It's interesting, isn't it? How are you going to know whether or not the things that you are reading on the internet are right or not? If I come to an ecclesia and I stand on the platform and I speak things at your ecclesia, there I am, speaking things in your ecclesia. If I speak true things, people will come up afterwards and they'll say, "Thank you very much, we enjoyed that. Would you like to come and talk to us again on another occasion?" And all will be well. If I speak wrong things, I'll tell you exactly what will happen. Someone will come up to me and say, "Hold on a minute, Brother Andrew, that's not right because of this verse. And that's not right because of this verse. And have you seen this chapter which explains that?" And they would put me right. And they would say, "Andrew, you have not been speaking the truth from our platform." And they may not invite me again. And they may speak to the rest of the ecclesia and say, "Can we just correct what Brother Andrew said, because he was talking nonsense. And he was talking nonsense because there's a chapter here which explains it better. And there's a book here which explains it better." And in our ecclesia, if someone comes to your ecclesia and starts speaking things which are not true, your ecclesia's kind of geared up to put it right. So it doesn't happen again. It stops. Whereas if it's truth, it carries on, and it carries on, and your ecclesia gets to hear truth. So interestingly, in our ecclesial environment, there's like safeguards and checks and balances so that true things are spoken and right things are spoken, and you can be confident, generally, that if a brother is coming to your platform and speaking things to you, he's going to be saying the right things. Generally. You might not agree with absolutely everything he says, but generally he'll be speaking the right things, because the ecclesial framework protects us and produces truth, because it's based on the Word of God. If you just go on the internet, so this is the ecclesial framework, and if you're down here at the bottom, the audience, you are receiving things of truth, and anything which is not true will be stopped. But if you just sit at home, and if you just go on the internet and you bypass the ecclesial structure, I'll go and get my information from another source over here, which happens to be your laptop. How are you going to know if this is true or not? You've got no one now saying, "That's not right, that's wrong, you mustn't look at that, you must read this." No one's doing that outside the ecclesial framework. So you need to be very, very careful. If you're going on the internet to find things, by all means do that, everybody does that, but you just need to be very careful. Can I suggest two things? If you're doing this and you're going outside the ecclesial framework to find things about the truth, you need to do two things. You need to do the first thing that Brother Ken has just been speaking to us about. You need to open your Bibles and have a look and see if what you're reading on the screen matches with what you know from your Bible. Turn up the references. Process it through all the information that you know already. Does this comply with? Does this accord with the things that you already know and believe? Or is someone saying something completely outrageous? Test it against the truth as revealed in God's word. That's the first thing you ought to do. The second thing you ought to do is you ought to try and bring this back within the ecclesial framework. So if you're getting information from here and you're not just sure if it's right, then bring the information back into the ecclesial framework and ask someone. It doesn't have to be your mum or dad. It can be any brother or sister who you respect, who you think will have good information about the things of truth. Go and say to them, I was reading this article online the other day, and it was saying that we go to heaven when we die. Is that right? And of course they're going to say, actually, that's not right. Let me show you why it's not right. And they'll turn up the passages and they'll help you understand what happens when we die. So that's an extreme example, of course. But just use your Bibles to test what you read online and bring it back into the ecclesial framework and just check with people and say, is this okay? Am I all right reading this? Is what I'm reading here a good thing or not? And that's a good way of making sure that you are learning things of truth online. So I thought that was a really nice little thought which Brother Ken gave to us there. Right. We're off. Someone tells me it's 4th of July today. Are there any Americans in the audience? Okay, 1 or 2 Americans. What happens typically on the 4th of July? What do you do to celebrate independence from the British? I think that was a sad day, you know. What do you do? Fireworks. Will there be fireworks tonight? Will there? Big fireworks. Americans always do things big, don't they? I'm looking forward to fireworks. Happy Independence Day to all you Americans. If there's any Commonwealth folk, Canadians, Australians, British, we'll stick together tonight, I think. We'll let the Americans celebrate on their own. There's also a football tournament on at the moment. Anybody follow football? You call it soccer. I know you don't call it. Yeah, okay. Do you support a country? I know the Americans and the Canadians aren't in it. Do you support a country? Do you? I'm going to shake your hand, look. I'm really pleased to meet you. What's your name?
Daniel.
Daniel, nice to meet you, Daniel. Do you support England as well? Good man. How nice. Anybody else support England? Oh, I feel amongst friends. Are you an England man as well? Your dad's British. I feel I'm amongst friends. That's really good. For the first time in years and years and years, England managed to win something yesterday. I suppose you all heard that, did you? We never ever. I've grown up watching England crash out of tournaments, and there was a moment of light relief where England managed to do something yesterday. Apparently the newspapers where I come from are just full this morning of news about how England is going to win the World Cup, and I'm thinking, oh no, they're not. But there we are. So lots of interesting things happening at the moment. I find it interesting, when we talk about American independence, I find it interesting the way prophetic things are working out at the moment. When I was in school back in the 1970s, we had a vote in England. There was a referendum in England about whether or not the UK should join the European Union. And brethren around the world who knew their Bibles and knew their prophecies said, there is no way England are going to join the European Union because our Bible prophecies tell us that England will be separate from Europe. And it was a bit of a low point in our community where the result of the referendum came back and Britain had decided to join the European Union. That was back in 1975, and Britain decided to join. And certainly in the UK, the British brethren were a bit sad about that, because they were thinking, are we understanding the Bible right? Do we need to change our view? And they looked at it, and they reassessed it, and they said, no, we understand this to be so. We're going to stick to our view. And I applaud the brethren. They were convinced that somehow, at some point, at some stage, Britain would have to detach itself from Europe. And even though Britain's been part of the European Union since 1975, so that's what, 40 odd years now, Britain never really liked it. You know, it was always there, but always complaining, always trying to change the rules, always wanted to get the Europeans to do things differently, always complaining about the French, always complaining about the Germans, always wanting different rules for the Brits rather than everybody else. And in the end, of course, a couple of years ago, there was a referendum and Britain said, we don't want to be part of Europe anymore. I can tell you, around the ecclesial world, there was great celebration. Here was a major piece of prophecy coming to pass, coming to be fulfilled, and great excitement. And of course, the general expectation is that Britain and the wider English-speaking world, even including the Americans, is coming together in a way which will form another group, which will not be aligned with Europe when the Lord Jesus Christ returns. These are major prophecies which are happening on our TV screens, and I find that really quite exciting. For what it's worth, I am absolutely convinced that there are no major prophecies that need to be fulfilled before Christ returns now. I think all the prophecies that we read of in our scriptures, there are still a number that have to be fulfilled. They can all be fulfilled after the Lord Jesus Christ has come back. So that means you, me, brothers and sisters next door, all of us could be called away to judgment at any moment. I don't know what that makes you feel. It might make you feel jolly nervous. It might make you feel concerned. It might make you feel joyful. Christ hasn't come back yet. Maybe he's not come back yet because he's just giving you a little bit of slack. He's just cutting you some time so that you can say, I just need to sort this out, you know, I just need to get myself organised. I need to work out whether or not I want to be part of Christ's family because he is coming back and you are all of an age here where you will need to talk to the Lord Jesus Christ and explain why it is you are in your particular situation in life. It might just be that you want to think a bit more seriously about being baptized and aligning yourself with the Lord Jesus. He could be back at any moment. I think that's rather sobering when you think about it. Even those of us who have been baptized, we are not always very good at taking up our cross and following him daily. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to do. I can tell you there's many a day where you think, oh, no, I'll just leave that cross on one side for today. I'll go and do my own thing. I'm not going to follow Christ. We do that as baptized people. You'll be able to relate to that whether you're baptized or not. But I think probably seeing the way world events are moving so quickly now, maybe you ought to just start thinking, well, I wonder if this is time now. I wonder if I really ought to be deciding if this is the moment where I need to grow up and decide whether or not I'm going to walk after the Lord Jesus or whether I'm going to do my own thing. That's a serious decision with big consequences. So you need to take that decision very carefully. Okay, that was a little bit of a warm-up there just to get us going. We're talking about the women in Matthew's genealogy. And you'll remember there are 5 women, and we need to find an extra one for our 6th session, which we're going to talk about the bride of Christ. We have talked about Tamar already. I rather liked her because she was an individual who in difficult circumstances never complained, never criticised, got on with things, ensured that God's purpose was worked out through her, and she declared herself showed herself through her actions to be a righteous person. That's why we called her Tamar the righteous. We looked at Rahab yesterday, and again, I'm impressed with Rahab. She is an individual who was happy to stand out from the crowd. The whole of Jericho was going in this direction. They were wicked people, And Rahab is standing out saying, I'm not doing that. I want to align myself to the children of Israel. And when the two spies came into her home, she rescued them, she sheltered them, she let them out in one particular direction. And you might remember, we looked at that verse in James where these two spies were called messengers. God wasn't sending spies to spy out the land. God was sending someone to take the message of truth to Rahab in order that she could be saved. And Rahab, when we read her confession, we realized that she was a great witness of things about the God of Israel. She understood about the God of Israel. She knew something about his promises and his work. So I was impressed with Rahab, who was happy to stand out from the crowd. And I think we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, something of a set of lessons developing for the likes of you and me. We are called upon to be righteous even if things aren't going in our favour, even if things are working out against us and life doesn't seem fair. And you must have come to some stage in your life where you have felt that is just not fair. Tamar felt that. She didn't complain about it. She just got on with it and sorted it. And maybe we ought to be like that. Instead of sitting there saying, this isn't fair, I'm going to complain. That's what we tend to do. And we ought to be a bit more like Rahab, happy to stand out, even though the whole civilized world around us is moving in a very odd direction. We ought to be willing to say, no, I align myself with the God of Israel. I am going to be in relationship with him, not with anybody else. And we're going to stand up and witness to the things that we believe. And today, we're going to talk about Ruth. I'm interested in Ruth because, a bit like Rahab, she is a Gentile. She is a lady from Moab, and therefore we have called her Ruth the Moabitess. Would you be kind enough to open your Bibles at the book of Ruth? So that's a little book. We have the first 5 books of the Bible, the Law of Moses, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. We then have the 2 books of Joshua and Judges. And tucked at the back of Judges, we have this little book of Ruth. And we tend to think in our Bibles that these things all just happen chronologically. So we have the book of Joshua, we have the book of Judges, we have the book of Ruth, we have the book of Samuel, and it just runs on. But Ruth probably fits in around the time of the Judges, actually. I know it's written afterwards, and it comes in our Bibles afterwards, but it probably comes in at the time of the Judges themselves. And we're introduced to various characters here who are going to teach us, I think, 1 or 2 lessons in order that we can appreciate how we should live our life in the truth. And these are 1 or 2 of the things that we're going to look at together this morning. So, if we've got Ruth chapter 1 open, I'm going to ask you to read a little later, but not at the moment. We're just going to pick up 1 or 2 verses here in Ruth chapter 1. And I'm going to assume that you all know the story. I'm sure you all know the story reasonably well, but we're just going to go through it and we're going to pick 1 or 2 things out as we go along. So if you look in verse 1, it says, it was at the time when the judges ruled. So that indicates, doesn't it, that this is happening during the period of the judges. That confirms what I was saying earlier. And there was a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah. So that's the city of Bethlehem in the area of Judah. Remember, there were 12 tribes with land allocated. And this man went to Moab, and he took his wife, and he took his 2 sons. So let's draw a little family tree here, because I want to try and follow what's going on here, keep track of these different characters as we read through the story. They live in Bethlehem. You've all heard of Bethlehem. Does anybody know what Bethlehem means? Any of you got